Hi, welcome to the first episode of AI DIY. AI DIY is a video series that investigates the tech products that non-tech people can build with AI. We want to find out what tasks can be done well with generative AI, i.e. what could be a DIY fix, and what tasks may require another solution. The hope is that at the end of each episode, you will know how to implement your own free and straightforward AI solution to interesting tech problems.
I'm your host, Stephen. I've recently graduated from the MCIT Computer Science program at UPenn, which makes me a tech person. Well, sort of. But anyway, it makes me qualified enough to determine what the average non-computer science person would feel comfortable doing with an AI response. Furthermore, where I feel that there are small gaps in technical knowledge that may prevent a non-computer science person from implementing a DIY solution, I can provide pointers that will help to bridge those gaps. For example, providing simple configuration instructions.
This leads on to who this show is for. It's really for non-computer science people. Experienced software engineers will be able to do more sophisticated things with AI. But that's not the point of the show. AI DIY will show non-technical people which technical tasks they could be doing themselves, and which tasks may be too complicated without additional learning. So let's go into an example and the topic of this episode, so that you can see what AI DIY is all about. I am learning French. It would help if I could do some short French reading and listening practice while on the web. That wouldn't take more than a few minutes. I could practice French in between doing different tasks, such as writing an email and doing some online research. This would help to keep myself accountable for my daily language learning. Can I build a language learning tool with AI? In this episode, I will be using ChatGPT, Google Chrome browser, and a simple text editor to build a Chrome web extension. This extension will allow us to practice French reading and listening in between doing tasks on the web. So I've entered my text prompt into ChatGPT, specifying what I want and what I want it to do. I've tried to be as specific as possible. For example, telling ChatGPT that I want a Chrome extension for French language learning, news articles from the Le Monde website, YouTube videos from a playlist, and that I want to be able to watch the video and read the news snippet in the extension. I asked for the code and voila, the code is returned. I'm not an expert at web programming, so don't be too worried if you haven't used an HTML or JavaScript file before. I'd strongly recommend reading the steps and comments that ChatGPT has returned, but if you aren't sure what every individual file does, then don't worry as long as you read the notes, so that you have an overall understanding of what the program is supposed to be doing. And even if you don't understand right now, that's fine. I'm going to go through how I got the extension working. This project is basically my first time doing a web extension. I'm relying 99% on ChatGPT. At this point, the code for 4 files has been returned to us. At a high level, the manifest.json file is for metadata, the styles.css file is for styling, the popup.html file is for content, and the popup.js file is a JavaScript file for interactive elements like retrieving a new YouTube video. I asked for references to icons to be removed in the manifest.json file because at the time I thought that I didn't need icons in my extension. However, I will show you how to add an icon because it's fairly straightforward and looks nicer. More importantly, I noticed that there was a reference to a background.js file, but the code for this file wasn't given to us. When I asked ChatGPT about this, it turned out that this reference should be removed because the background.js wasn't needed. Do ask additional questions to ChatGPT about the code if there are references to files that you don't recognize. We can see that the finished Chrome extension looked a lot nicer with a small French tricolor flag. It was fairly straightforward to add a reference to an icon back into the code. I added default icon frenchflag.png back into the manifest file. I then retrieved an image of a French flag from the web and put it in the same folder as the rest of the code. Obviously, the easiest way to have done this would have been if I hadn't have told ChatGPT to remove this icon reference in the first place. The next thing to do was to copy the code into 4 files, according to the instructions from ChatGPT. I use BBEdit as my text editor, but any would do, for example Notepad on Windows computers. I saved these files in a folder called French Learning Extension, but the exact name of the folder is up to you. The important thing is that we will eventually need to upload the whole folder to Chrome. The next step was to find the correct URLs for the Le Monde articles and YouTube videos that I wanted to play in the extension. I suspected that getting the URL for a YouTube playlist would be more straightforward. I have my own French language learning playlist on YouTube. This playlist isn't public, I just needed to set it to unlisted and copy its URL. I then pasted the URL of my French YouTube playlist at the appropriate point in the JavaScript file. The comments in the file should show you where to place the URL, so don't worry if you don't know JavaScript. I suspected that getting some sort of URL for the Le Monde articles might be a bit more tricky. ChatGPT had instructed me to use the Le Monde API. Honestly, I wasn't completely sure what this was and how to do it at the time. However, I did remember that you could get the text of news articles from RSS feeds, and so I searched for Le Monde News RSS feeds. I eventually found an RSS feed that looked appropriate. It had news titles and links to actual articles too. I wasn't completely certain that this was the API that ChatGPT asked me to retrieve, but I thought that I must be roughly on the right track. I wanted to see what would happen if I plugged the URL of the RSS feed into the code. So I had pasted YouTube and Le Monde newsfeed URLs into the code in my local files. I then followed ChatGPT's instructions on how to load this code into Chrome and create the extension. By the way, a few hours before I had loaded a separate extension into Chrome with a similar name. The extension that we are building in real time is called Language Learning Extension. I was able to load the folder into Chrome pretty quickly. There shouldn't be anything too tricky at this stage, so ask ChatGPT if there's anything unclear to you about getting the code into the browser to make the extension. I was getting closer to the first launch attempt, and unfortunately both the news article and YouTube links didn't work. That's okay. The main benefit of a computer science degree is that you learn not to panic when things go wrong. You can Google and ChatGPT yourself out of any technical problem. A more serious point is that we should always check exactly what the error is. I didn't completely understand what the error message was about, but I suspected that ChatGPT might know. It then gave me some quite complicated options for how to fix the issue. Options 1, 2, and 3 sounded like a lot of work, and I wasn't sure exactly where it would go. Option 4 was a lot shorter, so I was naturally drawn to that one. It was something about a JSON API. I didn't completely understand what it was telling me to do, but after some Googling, I found something promising. It had both RSS and JSON in the title, and it was giving me the structure for combining an API call with a RSS feed. Bingo! This seemed to be using a Guardian newspaper RSS feed, so I substituted in the Le Monde RSS feed URL that I had already retrieved. ChatGPT seemed to confirm that using this new API URL would work, so I asked it to give me updated popup.js code so that I could update the code in my local files. I had to remember to paste the YouTube URL back in as well. By the way, I didn't have to reload the whole folder into Chrome. Chrome can detect any updates made to the files on my local computer, so pressing the update button in the Chrome extension homepage was sufficient. Great news was that the Le Monde news article link worked. The YouTube video still didn't play, but as I hadn't changed anything that was expected, it was great to be over the halfway point towards my goal of practicing French reading and listening in between doing tasks on the web. I then told ChatGPT that the YouTube content didn't work, and after a short back and forth, it suggested that I modified the manifest.json file to include some extra permissions. I updated my local code again, ready to have another go at the extension. It worked. Fantastic. I was as happy as the French ladies in the video clip. However, I eventually realized that I wanted to ensure that I got a new article and video clip each time I used the extension. My time with AI wasn't over. What I wanted ChatGPT to do was update the code so that it would give me a random news article and video clip each time that I used the extension, as opposed to the first one in the list. I noticed that the code I was given would require me to input how large the YouTube playlist was, which initially seemed strange. However, on reading the notes, I understood that the code was going to pick a random number in between 1 and the length of the playlist. While I would have thought that there must be a clever programmatic way to do it, this was actually fine. I would enter a number slightly below the usual length of my playlist. The whole point of the episode is to show how non-tech people can use AI to achieve their goals, not how to do web scraping per se. Brilliant! Mission success. Each time I open the extension, it gives me a random article and video for me to practice French reading and listening at opportune moments during the day. I hope that you have enjoyed our time building a French language learning Chrome extension using the free version of ChatGPT and a text editor. While there may be a bit of trial and error, asking ChatGPT good questions supplemented with clever Googling means that anyone can build a simple browser extension for personal use. Please come back for more episodes of AI DIY, as I have many ideas for new episodes, and I hope to get the next one out soon. Comment on this video if you would like me to implement one of your ideas with AI, and giving the video a like would be much appreciated. Thanks and goodbye.